Let me tell you of Ravenkluft, a quarry Meave passed by. A quarry with a dark history. For years earlier, its wall had collapsed, burying dozens alive. Scholars summoned from Oxenfurt were unanimous in their findings. The rock was fragile, further digging would likely cause slides. Meave had heeded the scholars' advice and closed the quarry by royal decree. Yet now, as she neared it, Meave could hear the even tap of pickaxes. She dispatched scouts to investigate. They returned promptly, their faces sullen, their cloaks blanched with a fine limestone dust.
Quarry's open anew, Your Grace. Nilfgaardians. They've got folk in the pit working it. Appear to be from the surrounding villages.
Interesting. Their engineers have found a way to render it safe. Secure the walls.
I'd say that's right unlikely, Majesty. Judging by the fresh graves we saw.
My son. I trust now you see the superior culture Nilfgaard has brought,
said Meave, turning towards Willem. In answer, the prince merely dropped his head. The Queen then turned to Reynard, as ever at her side.
Reynard, what do you advise?
As a soldier, my Queen, I'd advise against any kind of assault. The terrain's hard, unsuitable for a fight, and we've little to gain from a victory. As a man, however...
Yes?
To leave our folk in chains, in that death trap. 'Twouldn't be right.
We all sense victory close at hand,
began Meave.
Yet that does not render it assured. Arrogance, locking swords with every foe we encounter could yet turn fortune against us. So we shall liberate Ravenkluft, but we shall not do so today.
Meave later returned to Ravenkluft, yet her advisors doubted still the value of mounting an attack on the quarry.
If I were to calculate in heart and mind, keep note of gains and losses,
began Meave.
I'd bend the knee to the Imperials, just as Willem did. But bloody arithmetic won't dictate my course, for I do what's just. I do what's right. Follow me!
Her troops followed without hesitation, swords in hand, their hearts afire.
Those whoresons, forcing my own subjects to fight us.
Your Grace, if we begin killing the overseers, the labourers will turn against them.
Ever have a storm knock out one of your teeth?
The overseers are dead, Your Grace.
The Lyrians handily dispatched the Nilfgaardian overseers, more trained in the ways of the whip than the sword. Those who survived now found themselves shackled in the very chains they'd forced the peasants to wear. Peasants. Oh, unfortunate souls. The cruel labor in the quarry had taken its toll. They stood before the Queen, shrunken to skin and bone, clothed in tattered rags, their eyes reddened by dust. But in those eyes burned a brilliant fire.
Your Grace, them black-clads treated us like dogs, stripped us of dignity. So we beg you, give us arms, let us march neath your banner. 'Tis a chance at revenge we seek, we want.
Reynard leaned towards Meave and spoke in a scarcely audible whisper.
Majesty, they've knout, not boots, not even foot wraps. To equip the lot, train them, would cost a small fortune.
You can fight for your homeland in more ways than one,
urged the Queen.
not just sword in hand. Return to your homes, your families and fields. Refill the granaries emptied by the Nilfgaardian invader.
The peasants obeyed their Queen, only for want of another option. Reluctantly they dispersed to return to their villages, visibly disheartened by their lost chance at revenge.
'Tis true. They've nought to their names,
said the Queen.
have few skills to offer and little strength. But to look in their eyes is to know they'll never flee, never throw down their arms. Such recruits are worth coin in any amount.
Emaciated, downtrodden, the peasants met the Queen's offer with gratitude. They relished the thought of facing their tormentors in a fight. Meave was listening to a scout's report when screams suddenly burst from the prisoner transport. In a moment, Meave bore witness to a truly macabre sight. The Nilfgaardian captives to whom she had recently been merciful lay dead, massacred in cold blood among the camp's tents.
Blast it all.
Seethed the queen, looking at the bloodied corpses. Those responsible for the deed, peasants from the quarry at Ravenkluft, Meve had welcomed into her ranks. The harm they'd endured from Nilfgaardians wielding whips, this was what had festered in their hearts and minds. The Rivians couldn't accept that their oppressors had gone unpunished. So they took matters into their own hands, in defiance of the queen.
There's fiends, not folk!
Cried the peasants, now armed and in uniform.
There was old this, plain and simple.
It had been justice by a mob, and Meve knew it should not go unpunished. Yet at the last, ignoring her advisor's counsel, she left the former slaves' fate for their commanders to decide. For the queen had grown weary of choosing between two evils, each one darker than the other.